Hello and welcome to the demo of the free-to-use pen test management platform AttackForge.com for Black Hat Europe Arsenal 2020. My name's Phil and I'm the co-creator of AttackForge.
My name is Stas. I'm also a co-creator of AttackForge. AttackForge is a tool to help you manage and run your pen tests and to collaborate with your teams. AttackForge is used by students, freelance pen testers, and security teams around the world. Today, Phil and I are going to show you how to run a pen test on AttackForge. We will start with defining scope, then invite your project teams, followed by adding and importing vulnerabilities, and then generating custom reports on demand. As a reminder, we have a live chat session. It is open, so please ask any questions as we go. We're here to help answer any queries you may have. Let's start the demo. Over to you, Phil.
Thanks, Stas. Okay, let's kick off. So for today's demo, let's run through a common scenario. You need to perform and report on a web application pen test. So imagine you're Batman and Lucius Fox has just asked you to pen test the new super secret gadgets website. I'm going to show you how to set up this pen test in AttackForge. So first thing to do is to click on Projects button in the navigation menu. Here we can see a list of all of the projects that we have access to or have previously created. To set up a new project, we're going to click on the button in the top corner here, Create New Project. Now we have a form to fill in, which will relate to this new web application pen test for Lucius Fox. We're going to start with entering in a project name. So we're going to put in Batman Gadgets 2020 Web App Pen Test. Then we're going to add a project code for tracking purposes. Now we can select the type of testing that's going to be performed on this project. AttackForge already has pre-built industry methodologies and checklists that you can work through for various types of assessments. For this particular assessment, let's stick with the web application pen test methodology. That will provide us with all of the test cases that the pen test team will need to work through. Now we can enter in the scope. Now, if you know what the scope is, you can pop that information in right now. You can always come back and update the scope at a later point in time. For the purpose of this web app, we're just going to put in the URL and perhaps the IP address of the web server that we're testing. Now we can enter in the test window. So let's say it's starting today and we're going to complete this pen test by Friday. We can also choose what scoring system we want to use for scoring the vulnerabilities that we're going to add on this project. We're going to stick with CVSS version 3.1 baseline scoring, as that's the industry standard. You can change your scoring system at any point in time. Now, Lucius Fox has asked us to be informed immediately if there's any critical or high vulnerabilities discovered. So we're going to email the project team on any new critical and high vulnerabilities. And separately, when the developers are flagging vulnerabilities as ready for retesting, I want to be informed so we can start organizing the retest. Okay, so now we've set up all of the information for our new web application pen test. We're going to click the Create New Project button to set up this new pen test. Great, our new pen test project's been set up. So let's start by inviting all of the relevant team members to this project. We're going to click on Menu, and then we're going to select Manage Access. Now we can see a list of all the people who have access to the project. I'm going to select myself and assign myself with a pen test lead role on this project. Now we're going to invite Lucius Fox as a client as well to this pen test. Now we're going to enter in the email address and then select the level of access for Lucius Fox. We're going to select View Access because he's a client. So he will be able to see all of the findings and download the report. And we're going to also assign Lucius with a client role. We're going to go ahead and submit that. And we'll see that Lucius Fox has now been invited to the project. We also want to invite Bilbo Baggins as a pen tester. So let's go ahead and again, click on invite and then enter in Bilbo's email. And this time we're going to select edit access because he's a pen tester on the project and assign him with a pen tester project role. Great, we can see now that the client, Lucius Fox, has been invited to the project and Bilbo Baggins is also invited as a pen tester. So now the three of us can start getting to work on preparing for this pen test. So now we're going to start preparing for this pen test to take place. So we're going to click on the workspace button from our project dashboard. And this is where we can upload all of the information that we need for the pen test team in order to perform the testing. So we're going to start by adding the solution design documentation to help the pen test team with understanding how the application works. So I'm going to click add item. Then we're going to add in some information. And we're going to select the asset that it applies to. Go ahead and save that. So now we're going to upload the solution design documentation. Great. We also need to add some test accounts for the pen testers so they can log into the application to perform the testing. So again, we'll click add item. And again, select the application that these test credentials belong to and go ahead and save that. Excellent. So now we have some solution design documentation as well as a admin account that the pen testers can use to log in, and they can create subsequent testing accounts from there using that admin account. So let's go back to the project dashboard. So now we're ready to start testing. For the pen testers, we're going to click Send Daily Commencement Email from the page menu. And now if we click OK, Lucius Fox and Bilbo Baggins will receive an email to let them know that I've now started testing on the project. And at the end of each day, I can click on Menu and then click Send Daily Completion Email. That will send them another email to let them know that I've now stopped testing for the day. So that way Lucius can be informed when testing is starting and stopping in case there's any questions or issues. So now we're going to start the testing on this project. We're going to click on the Waiting to Start box here on the bottom of the project dashboard page. And that's going to load all of the test cases that have been assigned to this project that when we were initially creating the pen test. These are the test cases that the pen test team are going to work through to help identify what's actually being tested on this project. As we work through the test cases, we can mark them as tested, testing in progress, or not applicable. If you need to add supporting notes and evidence on any of the test cases, we can use the Actions menu to add notes or to upload any supporting evidence or files. Now let's go back to the project dashboard page, and we'll see that the project's now moved into testing and the progress is being calculated for us based on our progress through the test cases. So as we start working through our test cases, we start discovering vulnerabilities that we want to register on this pen test. So we're going to click the Add Vulnerability button from the project dashboard. Here we can select a vulnerability that we'd like to raise on this pen test. Now, AttackForge already has about 1,300 vulnerabilities preloaded for you to make your life easier. So let's go ahead and keyword search for the issue we want to find, raise on this pen test. In this case, a reflected cross-site scripting. When we select it, we can see that all of the information relating to the description, attack scenario, and recommendation, as well as tags, has already been selected for us. So we don't need to worry about copying and pasting information from past reports. Now, if the vulnerability you're searching for isn't already available within the library, you can click the Create button to enter in an entirely new vulnerability, which you can store and save against your own personal library. That way you can then continue to use that on new pen tests and grow your library within AttackForge to save you reporting time. So once we've selected the vulnerability, we're now going to go ahead and select the asset or assets that we want to raise this vulnerability against. In this case, we'll select the web application that we're performing the testing against. Now we can see that based on the tags which are already stored for this vulnerability in the library, it's already pre-selected the CVSS scoring for us. Now we can go ahead and overwrite that if we need to. And we can see that the scoring's already been done for us. So we can now move straight into the POC. So let's go ahead and enter in our steps to reproduce this vulnerability. Again, this information is intended to help the developers and engineers understand how to reproduce the vulnerability so they can then fix it. We can also add notes. Now, notes are information which relates to this particular vulnerability on these assets. Keep in mind that the library contains all of the root cause and root treatment information. So what this vulnerability is, why it's bad, and what we need to do to fix it. Generally, that information doesn't change that often. However, the notes is where we can have specific asset level information for this vulnerability. For example, there was no input validation on this app, etc., etc. And we can add as many notes as we need. Now, by default, the vulnerability is visible to the entire project team as soon as we save it. Again, that's important because we want to reduce time to remediate. We want developers to be informed as soon as possible so they have maximum time to start fixing these vulnerabilities. However, there is an option where we can choose to save the vulnerability in a pending state so that the pentest team can do further analysis before alerting the project team to this issue. Now the tags have already been pre-populated for us. We can see the CVSS, vector string, as well as base scores have already been assigned to this vulnerability. We can go ahead and add additional tags or make changes, but let's move on. We can now link test cases to this vulnerability. Again, linking test cases is important because it helps developers understand what the pen tester was actually testing when it led to discovery of this vulnerability. And using that information, they can then turn that into their own set of checks or test cases to perform as part of their DevOps process. We can select one or more test cases. And again, it is an optional field because there will be vulnerabilities which fall outside of designated test cases, such as obscure business logic abuse. Now let's go ahead and save this. And we can now go ahead and upload screenshots or video POCs, any other supporting evidence or artifacts that we want to include as evidence to support this vulnerability. And for all of our screenshots, if we want them to appear in the report in line in a particular order, we can go ahead and do that as well. let's go ahead and click save, go back to the project, and we can now see that we have a new high vulnerability reflected cross-site scripting that's been registered on this pen test, and all of the information which is going to be populated in the report is also available in the interface to make it easier for the developers to download evidence and also access the notes and proof of concept. Now we want to import some vulnerabilities on the project. So we're going to click the Import Vulnerabilities button on the project dashboard page. We can see a list of different options available to help import vulnerabilities to this project. There's a self-service API which can help you with importing vulnerabilities from your various scripts or any sort of custom tools that you've created. However, for the purpose of this demo, let's import some vulnerabilities that we've collected as we performed our vulnerability scanning on the application server for the app that we're testing. Now, as we select the tool and then select the file, in this case, the .nessus export file, which we've saved from our Nessus appliance, we can see that it's passed all of the vulnerabilities which are contained in that particular output file, and we can select which ones we want to import on this project. So in this case, let's go ahead and select critical and high vulnerabilities, perhaps also medium and low, and maybe an interesting issue like this Nginx issue. And now we're going to click Import Vulnerabilities. And we can see that the vulnerabilities have been imported on this project. And it automatically creates the new assets as well on this project if they don't already exist. As well as it will create new vulnerabilities in our own personal library that we can use for next time, or we can make changes to if we're not happy with the standard Nessus information. So let's go back to the project, and we can see that all of the vulnerabilities that we've just imported from Nessus. So as we're performing this pen test, there may be notes that we want to capture. So we're going to click on the notes button on top of the project dashboard page. Here's the collection of all of the project notes that we've captured against this project. To create a new note, we're going to click on Menu and then Create Note. And here we can add any free-form notes that we want to capture on this project. So let's go ahead and put some information in there. Because it is a rich text editor, again, there is support for various HTML payloads. Now we also have an option to select whether this note's going to be private, meaning that only I can see this note, or whether we want it to be published and shared with the pen testers on the project. In this case, I'll keep it private. And we can also select whether we want this note to be exported into the report itself. Again, that functionality might be useful if there's other information that you would like the readers of the report to be aware of as part of this pen test. But in this case, let's keep this note to myself and click Submit. And we can see that our new note's been saved. So now we've identified a number of vulnerabilities on this pen test. So now we're going to create an attack chain to help the customer or client understand how we're able to steal the schematics for the Batmobile as part of the vulnerabilities we've discovered on this project. So we're going to click on attack chains, and then we're going to start adding our first attack chain. So we're going to start with including the attack objective. In this case, steal schematics for Batmobile. And now we're going to start our attack chain from the attacker's perspective. So we're going to select the attacker and the action that the attacker is performing. In this case, registering an account on the Bat portal. Next, we're going to add an action that's being performed by the attacker. In this case, it might be performing enumeration against the website. As part of that enumeration, we've now discovered a vulnerability. So we're going to click Add Vulnerability. And now we can select one of the vulnerabilities which have already been registered on this pen test. In this case, the one that we're going to exploit is the PHP unsupported version detection. So we're going to go ahead and click Save, and then add some context in how we use that vulnerability as part of this attack chain. In this case, the version of PHP was vulnerable to remote code execution, which as an attacker, we could then exploit. So we'll go ahead and save that. Next, we want to include some information about what we're able to do with that vulnerability. In this case, we're able to install a backdoor, and it was against the web server. And now we want to demonstrate the result or flag that we captured as part of that. In this case, we were able to compromise the Bat portal server, and we could start now searching for the Batmobile schematics. Now, considering that this server is hosted off the internal Wayne Enterprises corporate network, we're now an internal attacker. So we've demonstrated how, as an external attacker, we've breached this perimeter server, and now we have underlying remote command execution on the server in their internal network. So as an internal attacker, we're now doing a bunch of other interesting things. And ultimately, we're going to end up with stealing the schematics for the Batmobile. Now, each of these links in the attack chain can be mapped to MITRE's attack framework. Again, it helps for mapping and understanding what tactics are being used by the attackers and adversaries. We'll go ahead and click Save, and we'll see that we now have an attack chain which will also be included in the reports. So now that we've been able to identify how to steal the Batmobile schematics, we can communicate this information with our project team. If we click on the collaboration button on our project dashboard, we can see the options we have available to set up private communication channels with our project team. If we go back to the project dashboard page, we can see we also have an option to export vulnerabilities into other tools and platforms. If we click on that, we can see the available options, including Atlassian Jira and ServiceNow. If we click on Jira, we can see that we can enter in the connection information to our Jira tenant and then the vulnerabilities we'd like to export or sync. Now let's download an on-demand report to see what it looks like. AttackForge has a number of on-demand reporting options, including PDF, DOCX, HTML, CSV, JSON, as well as a zip file which contains all of the uploaded evidence for all of the vulnerabilities. Let's download the PDF. Now, these reports can be generated at any time on demand by anyone on the project team, including your own customers. Now, the reports themselves are time-stamped, date-stamped, so we know when they were generated. There's a table of contents, exec summary section, which contains information about the unique vulnerabilities as well as test cases, so we know how far this project had progressed when the report was generated. There's also a testing summary section, and as well as information on the assets tested or the scope, and also the project team. We can see a list of all the vulnerabilities, including remediation status. We have the attack chains, and then detailed information for the vulnerabilities themselves, including the inline screenshots for all of the steps to reproduce. Now, if you'd like to add a custom exec summary, you can click on the exec summary button on your project dashboard, and here you can enter in your executive summary section. This will be included in the report. Now let's go ahead and show you how to generate a custom report using ReportGen. To download a custom report, we're going to click on the ReportGen button at the bottom of our project dashboard. Here we can see some information about what ReportGen is and how it works, including a tutorial video. We're going to start by downloading the ReportGen tool. The ReportGen tool is a self-contained HTML file which has all of the relevant scripts in order to create our custom report. Next, we're going to download the DOCX base template. That's going to form the base template for our report. And lastly, we're going to download the JSON export for our project. That contains all of the data that we need to populate our new custom report. So now that all three documents have been downloaded, so firstly, we have our AttackForge ReportGen tool. Secondly, we have our template file. And lastly, we have our project JSON export. So the first thing we want to do is open up our template file. So this can be opened in any Microsoft Word processor. We can see that it contains all of the necessary meta tags, which will then map to the data within our JSON export file for our project, and it will populate and fill our report. The base template is structured in the design of our PDF reporting template. So it contains all of the detailed information you would normally expect from the on-demand reports. However, you can make as many adjustments as you need to this template to suit your own reporting needs. You may also have multiple templates for different customers or different reporting purposes, such as PCI DSS reports. We're making just some basic changes to this template to show you how it works. Here we've added a new logo and also corporate color scheme. So let's go ahead and save this template and give it a name. In this case, it might be Customer A Template. Next, we're going to open up our ReportGen tool. Now, ReportGen, it's super easy to use. There's really only two steps. The first step is to select the template file. Now that's the one that we've just created a moment ago, and we can see in the preview that that's the correct one. So we're going to select that DOCX template. Now it asks us for the JSON file, which we've exported for our project. So we're going to go ahead and select that. And now we have a new custom report that's just been downloaded. We're going to open that up and see that we now have a fully populated custom report for our AttackForge project, which contains all of the information that we need for the customer. Now you can style and create as many templates for your own purposes as you need. Now, if you need help setting up your custom report template, you can click on Help and Support from the main navigation menu in AttackForge, and that will take you directly to the support site. From here, you can click on reporting and then scroll down to troubleshooting. The troubleshooting section covers key information about how ReportGen works. But importantly, it also gives you a list of all of the available tags that you can include in your DOCX template file to help you provide the right information that you need for that particular report. Now, if you get stuck, you can also check the browser console of the ReportGen tool. And that includes detailed information on the information itself, which will be populated in the report. And using this information, you can then access these tags through your report and through your DOCX template. So that wraps up our short introduction into creating and managing a pen test in AttackForge. Over to you, Stas.
Thank you, Phil, for the demo. Let's recap. We created a project. We invited project team. We populated the workspace with entry criteria and other important information. We ran through the methodology. We added and imported vulnerabilities and actually built an attack chain, how to steal Batmobile schematics. And we created a custom report. I think Lucius is going to be pleased. What do you think? Let us know in the chat. Also, in the future, Lucius will be able to track retesting and also export vulnerabilities directly into Jira ServiceNow. We also have a ton of other features and workflows in AttackForge for you to explore. And that's wrap up our brief introduction into AttackForge. Back to you, Phil.
Thanks, Stas. And if you haven't fallen asleep by now, we'd love to hear your questions and feedback in the chat. Thanks again for watching.